And the more positive bit of this story, then, and you started right at the beginning of this, is that you're actually you're in a community in in a country that's actually going through a lot of change.
Yeah.
If the peace process is one part of the change, but it's not the only one, you've got a very generational change. You've actually got a set of people that want something different, have come used to something different. There's a lot of desire for change in your community as well, isn't there? A huge amount, yes.
And I think you can start to see that. You can see that you can see it in the community voluntary sector, and there is. And the idea, I would like to feel that the ideologies are starting to change. You're still always going to have small pockets, that are going to be very much ingrained in their past. And I don't think in our lifetime maybe it'll be settled. But I think for us, it's about giving people equal opportunity in terms of hope. I think when we start to think, well, you can't have this but a hope because this is where you're from and this is what you've done, or you can't have this but a hope because you're from the other side of the river and you were involved. It's about not being, it's not discriminating against the hope part, and that's important. But the landscape it can be fickle.
And what about the environment? So you've got a gym. You talked about accessing another gym. Is the notion of a lot of people accessing gyms, is that actually also part of what's common in your environment? Is Derry a place with quite a lot of gyms? Or
I think Derry has got more personal trainers per capita than anywhere else in the world. So there's a gym culture, and there's a health culture. So we have we're a divided city. There's a river right down the middle, and you used to have the Waterside.
I've been to Derry. I can visualize it, but tell it for our viewers.
So
yes,
you have the Waterside, which is on one side, which is predominantly Protestant, and you have the Cityside, which is predominantly Catholic. And then about 15 plus years ago, they built a peace bridge and stuck it right in the middle. So it opened up the two communities. And there has been more runners, triathletes, marathon runners, because what it has done is it opened up the entire city. So it's created running routes and walking routes. So there's more people now that are looking after their health and things like that, which is really encouraging because I didn't see any of that whenever I was kind of growing up. And something as simple as a bridge across a river can change the dynamic and the health structures within the city. There's loads of gyms in Derry. I didn't need another one. But in my context, I needed one specifically for people who wanted it for that purpose. So there is what it didn't have: visible recovery. It didn't have recovery communities. And in the UK and in America and all these places, they had visible recovery communities, and everybody was really open about it. That was all still very much hidden away. So what we've been doing is trying to change that landscape now, and start to hopefully encourage and inspire other organizations.
And I think when we go and look, it's actually a myth that it's all over America, it's all over the UK and other countries. It's actually very visible in some pockets. Yeah. And I suppose I'm interested to the extent to which you've now made Derry one of the visible pockets within Northern Ireland, rather than it being all over Northern Ireland. Yes.
Yeah. And we've done that too. So, I mean, and that was through the events, and that was through the invitational thing. So there was never a recovery walk in Northern Ireland. There was always one in Dublin every year. So the fact of having that, and then Derry now started that process, so there became visibility there. So I think I would just like to see more people. Like, there's so many people out there who have experienced this that want to try and do something. And I think the important thing was I didn't know what I wanted to do at the start. And that's evident. I didn't even know what I wanted to do whenever I went on the climb that day.
Yeah.
But I knew in my heart I wanted to use my experiences to help and support people, but I didn't know what it was going to look like. And I think sometimes we don't have to know what it's going to look like, but we have to try things.
Yeah. And I think absolutely. I think of James, one of the early people we talked to in this series, and at the beginning, he didn't know there was going to be a high street cafe, run by folk in recovery that was doing a food bank and providing meals for old folk out of it. But that is what's happening now, 8 or 9 years later. But if I'd caught him on your equivalent of day one climbing, that wouldn't have been on the agenda. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's exciting for the next couple of years moving forward. I'd like to think there's a bit more movement now and a bit more openness, and But hey, it's been an interesting road. I had
It's been
hair
brilliant.
and a
It's
fully
been
black
brilliant
beard.
for you to share it with us. Yes, I love it. I love listening to you and talking to you. It's amazing. Yeah, yeah.
As I said, look, I had hair and a really black beard when I first started this, so it's been it's been definitely worth it. But I'm also excited about what the future looks like because I don't have the answers for that either. But I know that we've got this far,
And
and
yeah, and you have a massive. You used the word earlier about individual recovery needing foundations, but it's almost like now you've built the foundation for a bigger set of community recovery now, and
yeah,
and that's the collection of the individuals. Each of the individuals has to have their own foundation, but you don't really get to. And I think that's really important. And I say that to a lot of people about recovery communities. And that's one of the things I really like about what I've heard about your journey. And I think one of the things that's really important is you're just still there as you were in the same place doing the same thing. That notion that the foundations take a long, you don't just
yeah,
put two bricks up and the house appears. You just have to, every day you're
yeah.
back and you're just doing the same thing,
And that's it. And that bit of resilience as well. You kind of have to have. And I think I felt through the running and the fitness and my recovery. I thought I developed resilience, but I think this has taught me more about resilience. Because it takes you out to a completely different set of circumstances, out of your comfort zone, managing people, finances, doing things that you never thought. And every single day or every single meeting, I find myself in meetings. I'm like, how did I get here? And it creates and it builds that resilience that that people in recovery would understand.